We're up and rolling, so let's start the thing.
Awesome.
Well, hello, this is Jim Morgan with Caring Transitions and Life's Copilot, and we are doing an event today for our seniors and our senior families and things like that on resources for you, which is kind of Life's Copilot's job. And so basically today I'm very excited. We have Darin Smith with us, and Darin's very involved in a lot of different aspects of senior services in the getting out information out to people and stuff. But he also has a fairly unique thing that he does in the there are a few he does have competitors in this, but this is something that I will tell you as a son and a nephew and a a son-in-law of people that we've had to find assisted living for and things like that. I would have killed to have known someone like Darin to help us with that process because it can be overwhelming and terrifying and stuff. But Darin is a technically to you a free resource to help you get find the right spot. So, Darin, introduce yourself and tell us who you are and what your company's name is and what you guys do and all that kind of stuff.
Sure. Thanks, Jim. So I'm Darin Smith, and I'm with Oasis Senior Advisors. We are a nationwide franchise, and I own the North Hamilton County area and can support anybody in Indiana. And what we do is we just become a free advocacy service to walk beside you or your loved ones in this aging journey and connecting you with those trusted resources to help you stay at home safely or to handhold you through the process of finding that right senior living community for you to move into to get the care and support you need. And we do that just keeping your information private, being your advocate, and being there to help you make that choice.
Well, that's very good. Well, I'll tell you I think a lot of people don't know that services like yours exist, okay? Or they think it's going to cost them an arm and a leg. My best way to describe what you guys do is if you've ever worked with a realtor to buy a house as a buyer's agent, the buyer's agent is paid by whoever's selling the house, okay? So it's not coming out of your pocket. Uh, and then um, and then they're basically working for you to help you get the right fit. Is that kind of the right thought process?
Yeah, that's the easy way to put it. Is we're sort of like that real estate agent for senior living. Again, there is no charge to the family or the senior. We get paid when we help somebody move into a senior living community. The community gives us a referral fee.
Right.
But we have agreements with all senior living communities. It's not a small section of them. So we're going to find the one that's best suited for your care needs, your budget, and your geographic preference so that we're looking at the options that are going to best fit your criteria.
Well, one of the things that I've done this a lot on my own because I don't think there
Yeah.
was anybody like doing this in town. When I first got this whole process started, and it's maddening. You go to these places and you go in, you don't really know if they're good or not. You can do some Google searches and stuff like that, but it's just maddening to try to figure out, do they have the care that you need? Do they have the social situations that you need? Do they have the culture you need? Do they, who's are they, what's their care level? Is it, does it, there's a lot on that table when you start doing it. It's not just the room and the price.
Oh, yeah, because there are some communities that will include cable and internet as part of utilities, and then there are some that don't. And if you don't ask the question, you won't know it. And unfortunately, like you said, a lot of people are not aware of our service. Yes, I do have competitors. They're all great people. Um, and just our industry in general is not a well-known industry where we can do a lot of that legwork for a family to try to take that stress out of what services are available, which communities can support me, what do they look like, do they have rooms available, um, looking at all those aspects. And it could be that you want a two-bedroom, and maybe two bedrooms they have a wait list, so we got to figure out, well, what does that look like, and do you need support while we're waiting for that two bedroom to become available? Then we could get you introduced to home care or some other resources that can support you so you're still being safe wherever you are.
Many times now this is my family's experience, but I'm assuming that we're not completely abnormal. Okay, and I've been like I said, I've been doing this for 20 some odd years, dealing with family members we would find, and I'm the sibling that stayed at home, right? So stayed in the state, So one thing we ran into constantly was, not even knowing the questions to ask, early on, to figure things out. And trying to figure out, is this a good place or is it not a place? And one thing I have learned being in the senior living business or senior business now for about 8 years is it depends a great deal not on what the building looks like, but it depends on who your executive director is and who some of the different people that
Yep.
are on staff there. And there's such a high turnover in that. That the fact of having somebody like you that's your whole job is to keep your thumb on the what's going on out there. That's a huge. I'm always having people ask me, well, which is the best place to go? And I'm going, I don't know, because I know this one's great today, but I don't know if they'll be there tomorrow. That type of thing. And so that's all you focus on is those places.
Yeah, that's what we do. That's the benefit is we're always in and out of the community, so we know who the management is, what kind of care they're providing. When things change, we are keeping a flag on, sort of an eye on what's going to happen there with that change. And it could be a positive change and it could be a negative change. We just don't know until we watch that. But that's our job, is to be in and out of these communities, knowing these resources, making sure that they're going to do what they say they're going to do. Um, and that's how we reduce the stress so that we can really help the people really understand it. And one other thing that goes into a lot is, as you were mentioning, people are like, which one's your favorite? What's it's like buying a house? My 3 bedroom, 2 bath that I like, you may walk into and say, what? I couldn't live in this place because of color, format, the way it's set up, whatever it may be. So my favorite's not going to be your favorites. And that's where I tell people this is like buying a house. You can't take other people's perspective. You got to go into the house yourself. Otherwise, just like buying a house, you couldn't say, well, my aunt said the house down the road is the perfect house, so I'm going to buy it without seeing it. You don't know if it's the perfect house for you, maybe the perfect house for her. So that's where we help sort of guide them through that process and create sort of a roadmap. So you're at home right now, you are healthy, you may need a little bit of support at home, but you need to start planning for a potential move to a senior living community because we never know when that crisis moment happens. So what we also try to do is walk through all the different aspects of having a good plan to stay at home or just to age safely. That includes, okay, do I have power of attorneys established? And do I have backup power of attorneys established? Because as with most couples, they'll say, well, yeah, he's got power of attorney of me and I've got power of attorney over her. But what happens if you're both in the car and you get in a wreck and you can't speak for each other? Who's going to speak on your behalf? So you need to have a backup power of attorney in your paperwork. Do you have your will, advance directives defined? And what I tell people is now is the time that you need to make your wishes known from advanced directives. Do I want to be kept alive? If I have a heart attack, do I want to be resuscitated? Do I want to be kept on um, a feeding tube or a trach to keep me alive? With COVID, they added a lot more aspects of the advanced directive um, um, ruling just so that you can have a little bit more say on what the medical professionals will do and what your wishes are and your beliefs in how you're kept alive if it was a crisis moment and they needed to perform some life-saving measures. Um, and we go as far as let's do some pre-funeral planning. And that is not just, hey, I got a plot, I've already got it purchased. It's okay, let's talk about what outfit do you want to have on? Do you want to be buried? Do you want to be cremated? If you want to be cremated, what do you want to do with your ashes? Are we going to a crematory? Are we going to have them on somebody's mantle? Do we have one sprinkled somewhere? So it's be very specific on what are your wishes so that your family, all they have to do is pick up a book that will tell them, here are all the wishes mom or dad had, or brother or sister, or whomever that loved one is. So that there's not guessing and there's not family dynamics that come in and say, well, mom said this. Nope, mom told me this 2 years ago. And there are differing opinions. And now you have mom or dad, or you have brother or sister battling each other to say, what did mom really want? Well, if now's the time that you have the opportunity to define all of that in writing and hand that to your kids and say, there is no fighting. Just pick up this book and here's your guidebook. And that's a blessing to families. I know a lot of people have had to plan funerals and figure out that urgent need um, when something happens, and they're like, oh my gosh, I have no idea. I don't know what outfit. I don't even know what kind of a casket they can afford, they would like. What do I want? I know that they really liked a certain song at church, but I can't remember what that was. Or there's certain scriptures that they always talked about, but I don't remember what they were. If you get all of those things written down, then it relieves that pressure from a family member trying to mourn the loss of their loved one and try to plan their funeral at the same time. So there's so much that goes into the roadmap, from, like I said, power of attorneys, advanced directives, funeral planning, home care. What do I want to, where do I want to live? If my kids are all over the country or all over the world in today's environment, do I want to stay where I am, or do I want to move closer to one of my kids that can help support me? And so those are things that we're going to talk about. Those are things that we're going to help introduce you to those resources that can do that. And it's a pretty large undertaking. And Jim, and I know you have had to go through it with going into the house or apartment of your loved one that passed, and you're like, how do I get rid of all this stuff? And that's sort of where you got into your profession, is this is what I did. And
Yeah.
so we have people like Jim that can come in and support you with, I need to move, but I have no idea where to start. And Jim comes in, packs everything, can help it move it to the new location, unpack it. And obviously, a lot of times there are way too much stuff that we have gathered over the years. And so then we need to get rid of it with an estate sale or whatever, donation or whatever that looks like for that family member's belongings. And that's where, we connect you to people like Jim that can help you do that. And a lot of times families use that excuse not to move. It's like, I can't pack. I don't have the energy.
Overwhelming. Yeah.
I can't reach the top cabinet anymore because of my mobility. So I'll just stay here. Well, that's not the safest thing for you to do. So let's get you connected to those resources. And what I tell a lot of people is, can you have a cup of coffee? Yeah, the cup of coffee's fine. I can do that. Have a cup of coffee, sit in the corner in your recliner, and just point and tell people, that's donated. That goes to my new apartment that we need to sell.
Right.
And
Yeah.
and that's what Jim's team will do, is they will divide it up across what you guys are looking for. So,
I will
they're,
add a caveat. You were talking about the cremation and what to do with the stuff. Since I've been doing what I've been doing, I have a little soapbox to stand on. If you're going to put something on the mantle, make sure that you have a advanced directive after that, because I'm
yeah,
constantly finding those things and nobody wants them. There's nobody left. And then what do you do with these? So
yeah,
that's not uncommon for us to find basically abandoned.
yeah,
You know,
yep.
so my do what you want to with them. That's fine, but have a plan in place where
For
they
what
go.
happens to you. Sure.
Yeah.
If you're going to put them in a mantle, or you're going to keep them as on your personal property, whatever that is, just make sure that there's a plan for when you're no longer there.
Right.
And that's sort of that whole roadmap. And then if you need to look at senior living communities or want to look at senior living communities, we're going to, introduce you to those communities that can support you based on that care. We're going to keep your information private because we're not going to blast it out there. There's a lot of competitors out there that will take your information, and all of a sudden your phone's ringing off the hook. We without your permission, we're not going to share your information. We're going to keep it private and be that one source of contact for those communities until we tour. And then when we tour, they're going to ask, can we contact you? And you can say, yep, here's my information, or no, just go through Darin.
Yeah.
That's totally your prerogative. I'm happy to be there, that point person. That's what I do. And so it's just really helping relieve whatever stress you may have with all the phone calls, what's the next step, and understanding, what are the opportunities that we need to look at. A lot of times people are not aware of elder law attorneys and their specialties that they offer, or the financial planning companies that, hey, do we know how long our money's going to last? We don't even know. We know we have a retirement there, but with the cost of senior living, which is pretty expensive or can be, it may take a good chunk of money out really quickly. And so we always ask people to ask your financial advisor before moving into a senior living community, do a 5-year, 10-year look on your money. How long will it last? How long is it going to be there to support you? Build in a 4 to 6% increase every year, because every community is going to have an increase. Even skilled nursing are going to have increases as you need, every year. So be aware of that up front so that you're not caught off guard.
Like I was going to say, my family, our habit was always to wait until it was crisis mode. Something happened, all of a sudden they're in the hospital, then they get into rehab, and then you get a phone call, they have to be out of here by 8 o'clock in the morning, and you're going, what do you do, right? And so, so that's when you're scrambling to find and I think a lot of people wait till those I mean, we've done it multiple times, and then you're in this mad scramble to find the place to
Mhm.
move them to, overnight, and that is not a plan that I recommend.
Yeah, and then, everybody, we never want to do future, like, oh gosh, what am I going to do when I can't walk, or when I can't speak for myself, or whatever. And we all think we're immoral, or not more immortal,
Yeah.
whatever that word is. Um, but one car crash, one fall that breaks a bone, one serious illness that then has a lot of medications that we can't support ourselves at home. One hospital stay for whatever it may be, you're in the hospital bed for a number of days or weeks, you get weaker really quickly. I mean, they say it takes a week or two per day to regain the leg strength, because you're not getting up and out of bed as much in a hospital that you should, to keep that leg strength and that balance. So, unfortunately, that's when we do get a lot of phone calls, is from those hospitals or those families that say, we're in the hospital, the discharge is in 2 or 3 days. What do we do? Where do we go? How do we find a community? So that if we can do for that pre-planning, build that roadmap, look at communities now when you're healthy and independent, that will help you say, okay, here's my priority. I have community A, community B are my two that I really like. Maybe there's a wait list for the apartment that you really liked in community A. So let's get on that wait list. A lot of times there is going to be a little bit of financial outlay to get on a wait list, but that's fully refundable if you don't go there and don't sign an agreement. So, but it does reserve that space for you in case you do need it. And when that room becomes available and you're on the top of that wait list, they'll call you, and you have the prerogative and ability to say, okay, yep, I'm ready to go. I want to take that room now. Or nope, call me when the next one is available. And at least and your family knows that there is a community out there that you selected, and they can then look at that one and see, oh, is there a room? And maybe there's a smaller room, maybe there's a larger room that you could go into right away, and then transition to the perfect room once you're inside that community.
Yeah, we've done that with people before, where we've moved them into a temporary room, and then moved them down the hall to what they
Mhm.
were really waiting on. So, yeah.
Yeah, and another big thing that we help people understand is, a lot of times people are caring for their loved one at home, which is a great blessing you're offering. But you, as the caregiver, need to have some time to recuperate. mentally, physically, take care of yourself, because a lot of times, unfortunately, the statistic says 33% of caregivers pass before the person that they're caring for, because they take on all the stress, they ignore their own health, they don't go to the doctors like they're supposed to, and then they pass away because they're all, they're not following their own medical professionals' guidance. So there are opportunities for respite stays. There are adult day services that we introduce people to that they may not be aware of. There are communities that will take a person for a short-term stay to give you the opportunity to continue doing family events or take care of yourself. So I tell people, if you have people out in California and somebody's graduating from college, don't say you can't go because you got somebody you're home caring for. Let's look at what a respite stay would do for that person that you're caring for, give you that freedom to go out and still enjoy those family moments and not feel like I've got to isolate myself from the rest of the family activities and enjoy life because I'm caring for somebody at home. There are a lot of different resources that we can connect you to help you be safe and still care for yourself at home and get those mental and physical breaks that you may need.
So tell me, what's it like when someone calls you and they're going to come in and visit with you? What's the process that you would normally go through with a family to try to help them find that spot?
Yeah, it's just a conversation. In fact, I just ended one. That's why I'm in my vehicle. Just going into the home of a senior and talking with them about what's going on. What kind of health issues are they having? Is their desire to move to a senior living community, or is their desire to stay at home right now? And if it's to stay at home, how can I connect them to resources that can support them at home? Is it home care? Is it hospice? Is it a handyman that can come in and put grab bars or ramps up so they continue to be able to come and go as they need to and be safe? Is it a nutrition company that can send them meals that meet their dietary concerns if there's some heart issues or high blood pressure, low blood pressure diets that they have to stay on, or diabetic diets that they need to stay on, but they can't cook for themselves any longer? Is it transportation services to help get you to and from doctors? Is it adult day service to give you that break from caring for your loved one 24/7? Um, is it a dog walker that can come and help take your dog or your pet for a walk so that they're getting the exercise they need, and they can come home and you can love on them and not feel like they're bouncing off the walls in your apartment or in your home? And then obviously introduction to those senior living communities that can support you when you're ready to look. And again, I always tell people, I know you want to stay at home. Let's go take a look at a senior living community. So if I ask people, what don't you want to do? They say, I don't want to go to a nursing home. And they put that all into one big bucket. What is a
Exactly.
nursing home in your mind? And what
I
people
think a
know
lot of
are,
us are still going on what, I'm a boomer, and I think the boomers and even beyond, older than that, have a tendency to think of going to see their parents or grandparents in nursing homes because that was all that was available, and that nobody wants to do that. It's still a thing. It's skilled living if you have to do it, but
yeah,
that's going to be more clinical. But a lot of these assisted living places now are like cruise ships on a landlocked, but they're. I'm
yeah,
like, oh my God, I want to live there. So.
yeah. So
But
what we
my
tell people
my
is, yeah,
my daughter, my daughter and her husband, when they were visiting my mom one time, they're going, "Oh my God, we want an apartment in here." So it's like,
yep, yep. Yeah, we tell people, that a lot of times your loved one knows a hospital and they know a rehab community, which is a skilled nursing community or what we used to call a nursing home. And they don't want to go to either one of those. And we don't want you to go to either one either.
right.
So let's go look at an assisted living or an independent living, or if there's cognitive issues, a memory care community where you can have your own apartment. You don't have to share an apartment. You get 3 meals a day. You get activities that you can decide if you want to go to or not. They'll take you shopping with transportation. They'll take you to your doctors if you need help getting to your doctor. Your utilities are all part of that rent and care cost. Um, so there's so much in with a senior living, like you said, Jim. It's like a cruise ship. You get to decide on what I get involved in every day. Do I go to all the activities? Do I go to one activity and then just go watch TV or go visit with family? And maybe I want to go to the park today. It's a great day. I'll call, and I have the ability to get there on my own. I'll go out to your car or your vehicle and go to the park, go to the grocery store, have a loved one come over and take you out for dinner or whatever that is. You're not stuck in that building. The building is, yes, the assisted living or the senior living, but if you have the mobility, you come and go as you wish, and it's just another apartment.
It's one of those things that, and they're not one size fit all. I mean, for instance, my mom was in one for years that it was a lovely place, and my mom is very much antisocial. Okay, she was before she, her whole life, lived on a farm and kind of hid on the farm. Okay, and then so when her lifestyle has not changed, she still stays in her room all the time. She really hasn't changed her who she was or what she does. And so the community she was in had big, beautiful rooms, and it was very gorgeous and all that kind of stuff. And she was perfectly happy there. Okay. My uncle, her brother, her older brother, was a social butterfly. That place they didn't really have gathering places. They had them, but nobody was ever in them. It was not a place that had a lot of social interaction. People, and I don't know why. It was just a cultural thing. Maybe it was the way the place is laid out. Maybe it's just the people who live there, whatever. And he was there for a respite while I was trying to figure out what to do. He was there for like 2 weeks, for a short term order, trying to figure out something after a stroke he'd had. He hated it there. Okay. Mom loved it. He hated it. So I found another place that was older. So the hallways weren't quite as wide. It wasn't quite as fancy, but it had 5 acres of grass and grounds around it with a lake, and it had a gazebo out there, and it had a big garden thing. And I got an apartment overlooking the garden. He was the president of the garden club. He was, he made all the flower arrangements for the Sunday morning services.
Yeah.
There was a big gathering. They were always together. They were always doing things, and so he flourished there because it was very social, and he got to do the things that he wanted to do, which he was so much happier than he was when he was living alone, isolated in an apartment.
Yeah, and those are the type of things that we try to uncover when we're meeting with a family is what are the hobbies and things? What was your profession? What do you like to do? There are people who want to play euchre. There are people who want a fishing pond. That's what they want to do in their spare time is go fishing when the weather's good. So whatever those things are, we try to match you up with those communities that are going to have those activities or um, items that are going to attract you and be there for your use. So yeah, it's a very personalized process. It's not a one size fits all. And as you mentioned, communities are not a one size fit all. There are some very large communities that may have hundreds of residents, and there are some communities that have 15 residents. And cost, care, whatever those differentiators are that are going to attract you to one versus the other is going to be what we try to uncover so we're matching you with those communities appropriately.
Well, you were talking earlier. You kind of brushed across something, and I'll brush across it as well to be, to handle it. There is, I made the mistake years ago. Again, I didn't know that you guys were out there, right? And I made a mistake of calling this nationally advertised agency that you see a lot on TV and in the radio and what have you.
Mhm.
And I called them because I just wanted to ask a very specific question, okay? So that I could save some time Googling and calling places just to find out this one thing. Oh my God, I wanted to change my phone number afterwards because they sold my lead to dozens of places who called me constantly, who had never heard my question. Okay. They were just calling to try to get with me. I wanted to change my phone because I couldn't. I mean, I was getting 10, 12 calls a day. It was insane. Um, you
Yeah.
guys don't do that. That's you're working just for that one person, not just, you know, bombarding people on his phone. So
Yeah, we're advocating for you.
yeah.
I'm again, I have contracts with all the communities, so I don't have a reason to send you over to, try to guide you to one versus another. And we're going to keep that information private just because of that reason where, some people will think that they're just asking a simple question online. I just want to know pricing for your one bedroom. I got to enter my phone number, I got to enter my email, and all of a sudden things are blowing up all over the place. So just
Yeah.
be careful of what information you're providing to anybody on the internet. And if you have questions, I just tell people I'm a free service. I'm not going to charge you anything. Call me, send me an email. What do I know about Community XYZ? What do I know about this service? Or what's the pricing for a one bedroom here? I'm not ready to tour. I just want to see if it is good for my budget. I am happy to answer those questions and not feel like you're going to get overwhelmed with phone calls and marketing materials from all the other, potential resources out there.
Well, it's one of those situations that I come from a real estate background. That's what I did before, in the past life for
Yeah.
decades. And every realtor hates Zillow. Okay. But, clients like it because they have great website and stuff. But if you call Zillow or you contact Zillow, then they sell your lead to dozens of realtors and they get paid by whoever wins. But your phone is going to blow up, and so that's the same kind of a situation.
Yeah, and the other thing that differentiates us from those type of services is we're local.
Mhm.
We're going to handhold you through this process. I'm not going to take your information and then cross my fingers that when you move, they'll call me and tell me, "Hey, I just made some money."
Right.
I'm going to handhold you. I'm going to meet with you. We're going to go on tours together. I'm going to help you ask questions. We're going to find those communities or those resources that are going to fit your needs without sending all kinds of information to you over the internet.
And
So,
going out and trying to do these searches, a lot of times I see, families coming in, and I'm constantly referring you guys out because, it's
yep.
people are kept, mom or dad needs to go to assisted living. They just from a safety standpoint or what have you. And kids are from California or Minnesota or wherever, Florida, and they try to come in on a weekend and bombard the city to pick something. That's a tough road to hoe, so that's kind of like you can do so much of that legwork for them, get them good answers, get them, because it's really hard to get all the stuff you need to know in a barnstorming kind of a way, wouldn't you say?
Oh, definitely. And that's where we can help. Oh, yes, definitely. And that way we can help do some of that pre-planning. If you're coming in from out of town, we can get you information you can look at before you even get here. Again, we're not going to share your information, so just sharing information to you does not mean your phone's going to ring off the hook. And then you can tell me which communities you think, based on the description and pictures and services that they offer, are going to be the one that your loved one would want to go to. We'll tour it. If it's not the right one, we'll go to the next one. But you
It's
can
like
do
I've
a
got
lot of that
a client
legwork
I'm working with right
up
now
front.
that's moving to Kansas City, and they're trying to do all this stuff from here. And I'm like, so I gave them your company's, website, about a couple other ones. I'm going, and I found ones that were in Kansas City. Going, call these people. They're going to make your life so much easier.
Right. Yeah, and we can do, that's the benefit of a nationwide franchise is we've got 150 plus locations around the country, all the major metropolitan areas. We probably have one, if not four or five in some cities, of franchisees and teams there that we can support you. And what we do is we then partner together to say who one of us has the front end, where the senior is today, and gathering all the information, understanding what their likes and dislikes are, what they're looking for, and then we hand that over to the other location that can then work with the family member there to say, based on the information that my I gathered here, they know, okay, in Kansas City, here are the top three communities that meet all those criteria. Let's go tour those and not feel like I got to do all this on my own. I don't even know Kansas City. I don't know which one's closest to the hospital or closest to the church that I used to go to or closest to my loved ones so that I don't they don't have to drive an hour across city to visit with me. And which is usually the purpose of moving to a city is to be closer to your family and
Right.
reduce those roadblocks that you're not getting visitations or be able to be there to support you. So that's the benefit of being in a franchise that has nationwide access. We also have nationwide partners and tools that can help you with the moving aspect. If you are going from state to state, obviously Jim can help pack you. They can work with those folks to get him on a truck
We
going
can move them
from
out there. I would
Indianapolis
have to
to
get
Kansas
another.
City.
I can move them there,
Yeah,
but I need to get another carrying transition to unpack them if they want. Yeah.
yeah. So there's so many resources that we can make it as seamless as possible for those moves that some people are like, oh my gosh, I have no idea how I'm going to do this. In fact, I was just working with a family that she went out to South Carolina and brought her brother here, just put him in a community that had an open bed. And then the franchise in South Carolina contacted me and said, hey, my client needs your help. So been working with her, doing some tours, found the community. She's like, oh my gosh, I would have never known how to get the information you need. And she's like, well, now I got to go back to South Carolina and get everything out of his apartment. I was like, why do you have to do that? She goes, well, how am I going to do that? And I said, well, we'll just call the franchise there. They have resources there that can get access to his apartment, pack up the things that you want shipped here, ship it here, and donate or get rid of or do an estate sale for all the other things. She goes, you guys can all do that from here? I'm like, yeah, there's no reason for you to have to travel there if you don't need to. And so we saved her money, frustration, stress on having to go there while her brother was here and try to empty out all of his belongings and not knowing how to get it back here in a cost effective way. We just streamlined that for her.
Yeah, that's one of the big advantages of having, let's say with carrying transitions, there's like 450 franchises. So I
Right.
can, tag team with people all over the place.
Right. Yeah. And a lot of people will ask, who's your main client? Is it the senior or is it the kids? And I would say it's becoming 50-50
Yeah,
because we're starting to work a lot more with that sandwich generation where the kids are now having to juggle that plate of who's caring for mom or dad. How do we make sure they're and then how do I do that on top of running my career, my business, my job, and I've got kids and activities in school and all these other things, and now I've got to add mom and dad care and support there. We work with that sandwich generation to figure out those resources to get make it as seamless and as stress free as possible, so they know I don't have to take time off of work to make sure mom or dad is safe. I've got, Oasis that has then introduced me to a home care company, and they're doing that check-in
right.
during the work hours, or they're helping transport mom or dad to the doctor's appointment. I can just meet them there, or um, I've got them in adult day service, so I know that they're cared for today. I pick them up after work, take them home, and we're all happy instead of again not knowing or figuring out how to support mom or dad when they can't support themselves any longer.
Yeah, very very good. So it is it's just, do you basically sit down with people? Do you have like a list that you're going through to try to help them figure out what kind of needs what their wants needs are, from cultural, from care levels, from whatever, to try to marry them up to the community that can handle that best? Because not every one of them can do the things that somebody needs.
Right. Nope. Yeah, we get to know a little bit more. We ask the question, a little bit about faith. Are you looking for a church religious organization? If you're Catholic, are you expecting communion once a week or every, what does that look like for you? Um, are there dietary concerns that we need to make sure the community can handle, or has that chef that can do the heart healthy meal or the diabetic meal capabilities, or if you're not driving any longer, don't have local support? How are you getting to the doctor to make sure that transition through that and talk you through all of it? So it's just part of that conversation and getting to know that person or the person that we're going to be caring for, making sure that they have all of those resources.
Well, so what do you recommend for someone that is trying to think about this? Who is the do you, and you say about half the time it's the parents, half the time it's the kids that are doing all this stuff. Do you recommend anyone that's got this kind of on their horizon that just to reach out and start kind of getting their heads around the process or
Oh yeah, I tell people pre-plan as much as you can. So let's sit down. You may not be ready, like I said, you may be looking 2, 3 years out before you're going to need or considering a senior living community. So let's start looking now. Let's sit down and talk about that roadmap. Let's make sure we have everything documented. Let's make sure we know what everybody knows what our wishes are. And then let's look at those senior living communities. And I say that because even though you may not be ready to move today, the two things that it will do is help you find the community that you think is the one you want to move into if you had to. Crisis moment pops up, you can't go home. We already know that community. So the kids or your spouse doesn't have to go through all kinds of hoops to find which is the one that would be best fit for him or her. And then the other one is we can get a good budget on today's dollar from that community when we're touring. We can know a little bit more about what their base rent is and what that includes. We can know a little bit about level of care and what are different levels so that we can build that in. And then I always tell people take that back to your financial advisor. Have them build that into your financial plan. Again, to make sure that your money is going to be there for 5 to 10 to 15 years, even if you don't need it right now, you guys will have peace of mind that it's there when you do. Or, hey, I don't have enough money to support me for 5 years. What can I do to protect my assets now? Well, let's talk to an elder law attorney and get you those tools and those steps to do that now before we have to apply for Medicaid waiver. Because when you do apply for Medicaid or Medicaid waiver, they're going to do a 5 year look back, which means any of your transactions, big transactions you did in the last 5 years, sold your house, took the proceeds and donated it, sold your house or land and provided to your kids um, or invested it. They're going to look back on, okay, where did that proceeds from the house go? What is this $10,000 donation to your church? Well, those, if it's within that 5 year look back, those are going to be counted against you because they're going to count that as your revenue still. And so you may not qualify for Medicaid as quickly as you think you would because of these 5 year look back penalties that they may assign to you. So if we can get you attached to an elder law attorney sooner than later, there are tools that they can use to help protect some of those assets and help you talk about spin down and what do we need to do about a Miller's trust or what does that mean and how do we do an irrevocable or is there even any assets to protect and what do we need to do to make sure that um, I as a person am taken care of. And so
what you're
it's
talking
just
about right
really knowing and understanding those.
yeah, what you're talking about right now is why Life's Copilot actually exists. I was,
Mhm.
trying to tell people this was back in 2020, and I was doing there was a story that was on the news, and it wasn't local, but it was salacious, so it got, quite a bit of attention about an elderly couple who committed suicide because they were overwhelmed with medical bills. And
Wow.
I made a post that was not necessary. I understand how they could be so overwhelmed, not knowing these things are out there. But I go, we're not lacking resources, we're lacking knowledge of them and how to get to them, right? And so I was, posting that you can do, and I just tried to explain, that you can have Medicaid or Medicaid waiver without being poor. There's these different processes. So I just posted that on Facebook, and I had somebody reach out to me and said that I told him that if you're nothing else, I go at least call Socoa, which is our local, senior, portal. And unfortunately, it depends on who you get in places like that, because you get somebody that's new that just opens a book and reads the rules out of a book, then you're still told you have to be poor. Okay, really what it comes down to.
Yeah.
And I'm like, well,
Yeah.
no, and then I got onto an elder law attorney that knows how to dot the I's and cross the T's and do it differently. And that's really where Life's Copilot came from, because I was so frustrated that there's so much misinformation out there. I had another friend that was going to divorce his wife so that she could go into a skilled living, and I'm like, no, I go, that actually is a fraud, and
Yeah.
it's but that was since the 80s that's not been necessary, because they got rid of the idea of having grandma and grandpa get a divorce. So, but those thoughts still are out there. It's just kind of like the nursing home. People still think that those are valid things, and they're not. Okay, so that's why Life Copilot was invented, was to get this information, like for instance, what senior elder law attorneys can do for you financially, and what they can do from a perspective, and it's huge. I mean, it's life changing to families, to what can be
Yeah.
done. So, but
Oh
yeah,
yeah,
that's
you know,
just
a
getting
lot
that
of people are
information
like,
out.
Medicaid's going to take my hand, might take my house and my land and everything. Well, it could, but there are
Yeah.
ways around that if you start early enough to protect those assets
So often I'm so
and
sad, because
know those,
I
right?
run into people who thought they had to spend all this, and they waited till they blew
Mhm.
through every dime they had before they did anything. In fact, we were one of those. My mother-in-law, that's what we did with her. We didn't know any better. Okay, we spent
Yeah.
every dime she had. You know, Now fortunately we had enough sense, with my uncle and my mom, that we learned something hanging out with all y'all. So
Well, and the other thing that some people have as a misconception is when I apply for Medicaid, I'm going to get it right away. And unfortunately, what Medicaid waiver is a tool that the assisted living communities use
and the
to
emergency care
support
too.
you
Yes,
when you don't have the funds available. And so to get Medicaid waiver right now for Indiana, it's about an 18-month to 2-year waiting period. A couple of years ago, some miss allotments or whatever happened, and Indiana screwed up their process, and they're still trying to fix it. But
yeah,
for people who need care, unfortunately, it's an 18-month to 2-year wait period before they're going to be approved for that waiver. So the sooner that you start planning, even if you still have assets in you, and like Jim said, you don't have to be totally poor. Let's start looking at that and talking to elder law attorneys and making sure and getting that process and understanding, okay, when is the perfect time to start applying, knowing it may be 2 years before get approved, and I may need that in a year and a half, or
right.
I may need it now, and unfortunately, I don't get it now, so I got to wait.
And there are communities out there. For instance, I just, with the one I chose for my mom, we my mom is kind of walking a thin line between, if she need to be in skilled living, or can she stay in assisted living. Okay, that's kind of, and it's kind of a balancing act. Okay. Um, but one of the biggest, most important things to her is to have her cat with her. Okay, well, if she goes to skilled living, that
Mhm.
would not be the case. So I found two communities that I thought had the actual care level at AL, that she could stay the whole time, right? One of them's all private pay, and the other one you have to do private pay for 2 years, and then you could go to waiver. Okay. I know that after 2 years, she'll be out of, if she's much beyond 2 years, 3 years, 4 years, she would run out of money, which would then, require her to move again. Okay. And, and probably to skilled, which then means lose the cat. So we ended up going with the one that we could transfer into waiver after 2 years, and we started the process. Okay. So with that, and the relief she has to know that she doesn't have to move again and she doesn't have to, her cat's safe with her is immense. But those are the things that if you're coming in fresh to this stuff, it ain't easy to figure that out.
Oh yeah, I mean, like you said, there are communities that are strictly private pay. So as soon as you need any kind of government assistance, it's time to you have to move again. And you just met all these people and enjoyed the friendships, and now I got to move to another community. Or there are those handful of communities that you can spin down private pay for a couple of months, or 18 to 24 months is about the average right now, and then you can transition to Medicaid waiver, and you don't have to move. And then you have communities that will accept Medicaid waiver day one. You
Yeah.
don't have any kind of spin down. So it just depends on that person's budget and their capabilities and being able to spin down or have any private pay option versus no option versus yeah, I can private pay for the rest of my life, for those long-term care insurance folks that may have a really good policy. And the other thing that we help people understand is one of the questions we ask are you married, single, divorced, or widowed? And if you're widowed, did you or your spouse serve in the military? Because there are VA benefits that a lot of times the military didn't tell you about or tell your husband or wife about
Right.
that you
And
may
it's big
qualify
money,
for
big
even if
money.
they've already passed. And it is big money. It can, if you're the veteran and you need support and you meet all the criteria, which is for VA aid and attendance, you have to have active duty for 90 days. One of those days had to be defined as wartime. Does not mean you had to be in the war. It just means that I could have been at Fort Ben Harrison writing checks to suppliers and they called it the Vietnam War. I qualify,
Right.
or my spouse qualifies when I pass, or if she needs care right now. And if I'm the veteran and I need support, it could be $2,800 a month.
Yeah.
If I'm the spouse and my veteran has passed, it could be $1,400 a month. But that's money that a lot of people aren't aware of, and the VA is not going to be the one that's going to be, hey, we got this great benefit out there. Not that they're trying to hide it, but they're not, out there singing it from the rooftops that we support our veterans from afar, and from many wars ago.
Well, I will tell you that my personal experience with that was when I realized why elder law attorneys were so critical. And most people don't get their benefits because they give up because it's so complicated to get it processed, right? Um, my
Right.
father-in-law, we were trying to get it for him because the community we moved to, they handed us a form, said, fill this out and you can get this extra money, right? So that was all they told us. So I'd fill it out and I'd send it in and I'd get a ding back that something wasn't right. Then I'd send it out and get it back. And 18 months goes by and we're still getting rejections. And my father-in-law had actually passed by then. Okay, but by the time you file, you get the money back to that file date. But we still needed it for
Yep.
her, and so I got mad. Okay, and my life's goes on. I got mad. Maybe a lot of things in my life is because I got mad. But anyway, I got mad, and my son was the campaign manager for our local congressman, and so I called that office, and I said, is there anything to be done? 48 hours later, we had the money. And I'm going, you shouldn't
Wow.
have to know a congressman to get this done, right? But that
Right.
was all I knew at the time. Well, it was my in-laws, oh, my uncle's time. Okay, at this point, my son, same son, because you need to talk to this buddy of mine. He's a lodge brother and he's an elder law attorney in Carmel. And so I called him up. I didn't really know what an elder law because I wasn't in this industry yet, right? So I get a hold of him, and 2 weeks later we had his money. Okay. So it was like he knew
Wow.
how to dot the I's and cross the T's and package the
Yep.
program and get it done. But most people give up. They keep getting these dings like I was doing, and they just give up. Well, it's a lot of money.
Yeah, it can be. And that's, and some people will say, well, I don't want to pay for a service because there are services that can help you do that file as well. Some are in the hundreds of dollars and some are in the thousands of dollars. But what you're giving up if you don't use that service or don't want to go through the headache is multiple thousands of dollars that could support you or your loved one in their care.
Right.
So just knowing that, or we have veterans that may qualify because they are not wartime, but they are veterans, and maybe they need help with home care and they don't know how to go about it. And it's a pretty simple process of going to your VA doctor or establishing a VA doctor and requesting an assessment from their social worker to get home care come in and support you for free as a veteran. Now, you may only get 3 hours a day, 3 hours a week, but support that you have that you didn't even know you qualified for.
Right.
And again, this is a reason for our consultation is to understand all of those nuances in your family history and your habits and hobbies and things that will help us figure out what that roadmap needs to include and what kind of resources we need to start introducing you to today so that you have the support to stay safe wherever you are. And then we help you find that senior living community when you no longer want to stay at home. And that can be because you
It
the
sounds like to
physical
me
reasons and
you operate kind of the same way we do. I'm always telling people, please get me in early, okay, to come and look at your place. I don't care. It's free for me to come to visit with you. We're just going to talk. We're going to start kind of coming up with plans. But I go, because I'm always having people that were waiting. They don't want me to come or anybody to come until they have all their ducks in a row in their head or whatever. And they end up, the family
right.
works like crazy, cleaning out closets, cleaning out cabinets. And when they call me in, they have what they think is valuable to sell, but they gave away everything that was valuable, and all they have left is like their dining room table and china cabinet that no one want anymore. It's like, let me come in and tell you, don't throw this stuff away. Let's focus on how we can help you here. So
Yeah, it's amazing what items are valuable in today's world.
yeah,
Those antiques that mom or dad or grandma and grandpa have passed down to you, you can get pennies on the dollar.
exactly.
But you may have a Disney cartoon book that could be worth thousands of dollars.
Yeah, it's
So you don't know unless you have
yeah,
an expert that understands what collectors are looking for in today's world. Those things that those Hummels and Christmas villages that back in the day, oh, I'm going to get all kinds of thousands of money because they're going to be unlimited or it's going to be limited and you can't buy it anymore. And now people are like, I don't want it. I'll give you 50
my
cents.
answer to that, those kind of collectibles like that, the people who collected them are the people's houses were cleaning out.
Yeah. Yeah.
So there's a
Yep.
glut on the
And
market
you
of
may
those.
find one collector or you may find a commercial place or a museum or something that wants those types of things. But like I said, antiques, hardwood furniture
Yeah.
is not something that today's population wants. It may come back, and I think it
Yeah,
will.
they ebb
But
and flow.
but right,
We were doing an estate sale, so I actually had to put sticker prices on things rather than an auction. This has been years ago. And this guy had a huge collection of pre-World War II Lionel trains. And I'm like, oh my God, these things have got to be worth a ton, right? Because in my mind, that
Mhm.
was a valuable asset. So there was a little train store in Zionsville, and I went over there to try to get ideas on pricing. And so I met this gentleman, and he was had to be at least 95 years old that owned the store. He was, tiny little guy that's, was, frail. And I'm looking through his stuff. He had so much stuff, and I was going through this, and I was dumbfounded by how low the prices were. That just didn't make sense to me because I'm thinking these things are like collectors off the chart. And I mentioned it to him. He goes, "Well," he goes, "let me tell you," he goes, "all my customers look like me."
Yeah,
And it was like, oh, so the people today are buying them. They want one engine or one train car to put on their shelves as a decor. So
right.
they're not going to pay,
To finish out the set that they've had, or
or just
yeah,
just to have their just
yeah,
as something to look at. Going, isn't this an interesting looking thing? They don't want the train. They don't want any of the track. They don't want any, whatever. So so it's interesting how there are
yeah.
sure
And so
people out
I
there.
know, yeah,
So
but to sort of wrap up this hour is um, it's just a conversation, and we help you put
Yeah.
all of this information and ask these questions and get your mind going to say, we need to plan now. Let's figure out what resources we have or what we need, and how do we get them engaged so that if there is a crisis moment or when a crisis moment occurs, it's not as big of a crisis moment. Yes, it's still going to be a crisis moment when you fall or go to the hospital, but we may not have to jump through all kinds of hoops. We may jump from step A to step M, and it's pretty easy to do that instead of I'm going from A and I have no idea where I'm jumping to.
Well, it's kind of like, it sounds like to me the same similar conversation in that first meeting that we have a lot of times. I may be 2 years out before they use us or whatever, but it's
Right.
and the same thing there. And I'm not going to charge you for this, and you don't either. But if nothing else, they walk out with a different perspective on things that are out there. They're not as panicked because
Mhm.
just from my relationship, knowing all the different service providers from the events that we go to and things like that, I sleep better at night because I know that we had this one home care person, a nurse advocate that worked with us for my family for 9 years. And I would go to bed years ago and lose sleep because I'm like, what happens if she quits or dies or whatever? I mean, I can't function, right? And she's taking care of my uncle and my mom. What the heck would I do? Well, now when that call did come and it did come, I'm like, I'm done. I'm whatever. I had five people that I knew well that I could call and we didn't miss a beat. Okay, but that requires knowing what somebody that's in the business that can help you find that next step. And that's what you're
Yeah, and like you
providing. That's
said,
what,
it doesn't have to be that you don't have to be looking to move in 3 months or 6 months. You may just be doing that planning stage, which I
right.
love, helping people in that planning stage for 2 or 3 years down the road. I had one couple call, and he was like, "We're not ready to move, but we know there's more and more people aging into 65 or older, faster now than ever, and communities are only limited, so we want to get on the wait list, but we're not ready to move." So we did tours, and again, they may not move for 2 or 3 years, but at least they have started that process. I'm going to be here to support them whenever they are. I send out a newsletter once a month, and that's as much communication as you may get if you just tell me, just do a touch base every so often. And then if crisis moment comes, you call me and I meet you at the hospital or wherever you are, and we start talking through, okay, what's our next step? When's discharge? What's the discharge? What's the care plan? Are we going to rehab? Are we going to acute rehab? How do we figure out those next steps and make sure you're getting the right advice and the right information and this crisis moment that we can make it a smooth process?
But the good news is in that crisis moment, it's not the first time they'd heard this stuff. Their brain has already
Right.
been aware that these things are here. These are resources we can lean into, and the panic is going to go down dramatically because now we just have to refine rather than we don't have to be just exposed for the very first time to a concept we'd never heard of before.
Right. Exactly. And that's where, again, you can jump from step A to step Z if you need to really quickly and not just figure out, like, I'm looking in the sky and I have no idea where the clouds are because
Or
I've
who to
got to
call
figure
or
out
what to do.
what
Yeah.
the next step is. Yeah. What resources are available. We already know that. We've already vetted those out and we've already got you in contact with them so that it's never a fun process per se, but it makes it easier, less stressful, and you can focus on your health or your loved one's health and we can do the rest of it.
Well, Darren, it sounds like an oasis for people almost. So,
Yeah.
well, thank you so much for sharing with us today. And we'll have this out. I'll send you a copy of this. You can use however you like. And it'll
Thank
be
you.
on Facebook as a live thing for a month. And then Facebook kicks all the live stuff off. But we'll have a YouTube of it out too.
Awesome. Thank you,
All right,
Jim.
man. See you later. Take care.
Alrighty. Bye.